Good day everyone, Dr. Polaris here. Today we will be examining another alleged living dinosaur from the Congo, the horned Emela Ntouka. This mystery animal is an elephant-sized cryptid that is claimed to live in the Congo and possibly Cameroon. With a name meaning killer of elephants, it is quite clear that the beast is said to be of an aggressive nature and charges at anything that moves. But what does it look like? While the Mokele Mbembe is sauropod-like, apparently, the Emela Ntouka resembles a horned Ceratopsian. The Emela Ntouka is claimed to be around the size of an African bush elephant, brownish to grey in colour, with a heavy tail and with a body of a similar shape to that of a rhinoceros, including one long horn on its snout. Supporting its massive, bulky body above ground level are supposed to be four short, stump-like legs. It is described as having no frills or ridges along the neck. The animal is alleged to be semi-aquatic and feeds on the malambo and other leafy plants. The Emela Ntouka is claimed to utter a vocalization described as a snort, rumble, or growl. Along with the Mokele Mbembe, with which it shares many characteristics, the Emela Ntouka was one of the first of the supposed prehistoric Congo cryptids to gain traction among Western explorers and travellers to the region. The oldest accounts that have been linked to the creature generally come from the turn of the 20th century, although it must be noted that the name Emela Ntouka is never used in these early reports. Carl Hagenbeck, the German big game hunter mentioned in my Mokele Mbembe videos, told of reports that reached him of a large unknown animal that locals called the chipekwe. Hagenbeck noted that the chipekwe had an antagonistic relationship with the hippos that dwelt in Lake Bangweulu, attacking them on sight and goring them to death with its horn. In December 1919, the London Daily Mail published a letter from C.G. James, who had lived in Africa for a time. He reported that an enormous beast with a single ivory horn lived in the waters of Lakes Bangweulu, Mweru and Tanganyika, as well as the Kafue swamps. James said this animal was called chipekwe by the natives, and that it was reputed to leave tracks similar to, but different from, those of a hippopotamus. The descriptions of the chipekwe provided here are rather vague, and the term dinosaur is never used in relation to the animal in question. A few decades of spurious sightings followed, but the next major record of a large horned cryptid dwelling around Lake Bangweulu came in the writings of British hunter J.E. Hughes. Hughes, who had formerly worked as an administrator for the British South Africa Company, lived in the region for 18 years and wrote about his experiences there in a book titled 18 Years on Lake Bangweulu. Hughes wrote that, "For many years now, there has been a persistent rumour that a large prehistoric animal was to be found in the waters of our Lake Bangweulu. Certainly, the natives talk about such a beast, and chipekwe or chimpekwe is the name by which they call it. I find it is a fact that Herr Hagenbeck sent up an expedition in search of this animal, but none of them ever reached this place, owing to fever, etc. They have come at the wrong time of year for newcomers. It is described as having a smooth, dark body without bristles and armed with a single smooth white horn fixed like that of a rhinoceros, but composed of smooth white ivory, very highly polished. It is a pity they did not keep it, as I would have given them anything that they liked for it. I noticed in Carl Hagenbeck's book Beasts and Men that the chipekwe has been illustrated in Bushman paintings. This is a very interesting point, which seems to confirm the native legend of the existence of such a beast. This is the first time that this animal was referred to as being prehistoric in nature, as previously the explanation for these stories had been that there was an unknown species of rhino in the area. Hughes' book was published in 1933, the same year that the now plesiosaur-like Loch Ness Monster first entered the public consciousness. As noted in my previous videos, this was the height of the early 20th century dinosaur craze, which undoubtedly had an impact on how these stories were received and reported. The similarly Congolese Mokele Mbembe had already been proposed to be a living sauropod dinosaur, So the link was similarly made with this horned creature because, hey, if there's one species of living dinosaur in the Congo, why not a second? From this point onwards, Hughes's description of this cryptid became the definitive image of this potentially prehistoric survivor. The Emela Ntouka was first mentioned by name in 1954 in an article in the journal Mammalia by former Likwala game inspector Lucien Blanco. He stated the Emela Ntouka was larger than a buffalo and dwelt throughout the Likwala swamps. It was also Blanco who first mentioned the fact that the Emela Ntouka kills elephants when disturbed, much like the Mokele Mbembe's alleged hatred for hippos. While both animals are supposedly herbivorous, they are supposed to share a fierce sense of territoriality, and it is, for this reason, the pygmies are claimed to fear it more than any other dangerous animal. Here is more information on the above report by Lucien Blanco. Blanco, chief game inspector in French Equatorial Africa in the 1950s, wrote of a ferocious creature in the Congo, which was described as the most dangerous of all animals in the area. The presence of a beast which sometimes disembowels elephants is also known, but it does not seem to be prevalent in what is in these preceding districts. In 1981, our old friend Dr. Roy Mackall travelled to the Congo searching for the rumoured sauropod dinosaur Mokele Mbembe. But he was surprised to hear of another mysterious animal called Emela Ntouka, or killer of elephants. The natives in the northwest region of the Likwala swamp told how it would gore elephants with its single horn. Mackall's speculation that it was a Ceratopsian dinosaur was cast in some doubt by the pygmies not recollecting a neck frill. The description, however, also does not fit that of a rhinoceros, which have short tails and do not have a true horn composed of bone or ivory. Mackall left open the possibility that the Emela Ntouka was a still surviving Centrosaurus. This is important as, previously, while being described as prehistoric, the Emela Ntouka was now specifically said to be a Ceratopsian dinosaur. This suggestion seems to originate with Mackall at exactly the same time that he was promoting the existence of the sauropod-like Mokele Mbembe. In an amusing aside, in 1981, American engineer Herman Rutgers led his own expedition in search of the Mokele Mbembe. He returned with a sound recording of a low, windy roar that increased to a deep-throated, trumpeting growl, which Rutgers believed to be the Mokele Mbembe's call. Herman Rutgers' conclusions about this tape were later contradicted by Mackall, who asserted that the Mokele Mbembe does not have a vocal call. You would think that, being a biologist, Mackall would have argued for a more sensible explanation for this recording, such as the sound being produced by an African elephant or something. But no, Mackall asserted that the vocalization should more correctly be associated with another unknown cryptid, the Emela Ntouka. This was my response.
You serious?
The two men continued to argue over this fact, which seems really funny to me. Two middle-aged men arguing over what noise an imaginary animal makes. In all seriousness, though, this argument is quite simply preposterous. For one thing, we can categorically state that Ceratopsians died out at the end of the Cretaceous period 65 million years ago. No fossil remains attributable to these animals have been found anywhere in the world after this time. Secondly, Ceratopsids were native to the northern continents and did not inhabit any of Greater Gondwana, including Africa. Those in favour of the Emela Ntouka, namely creationists and cryptozoologists for whom anything goes, argue, and I use the term loosely, that animals like the coelacanth have survived undetected and unchanged since the time of the dinosaurs. But this is simply not true. Coelacanth fossils dating from after the end of the Cretaceous extinction event have been found, while not a single fossil has been found that demonstrates that Ceratopsians survived into the Cenozoic. Also, since large advanced Ceratopsians were mostly confined to the North American continent, they would have to have migrated across Asia in order to reach Africa in the first place. In addition, the argument that there are living dinosaurs in the Congo rainforests, simply because this is the kind of place one would expect a dinosaur to live, does not stand up to scrutiny either. The rainforests of Western and Central Africa, as I have said before, are not unchanging relics of the Mesozoic, but are actually fairly recent developments. Until the end of the last ice age, this region was covered with open savannas, home to lions, zebras, and, most importantly, rhinos. Rather than a surviving Ceratopsian dinosaur, isn't it more probable that the Emela Ntouka, just like the Mokele Mbembe, represents a distorted folk memory of a time when rhinos did inhabit the Congo basin? Remember that the early accounts of the Mokele Mbembe often did not mention the creature possessing a long neck, but frequently described the creature as having a single horn on its snout. It is my pet theory that these two supposedly different cryptids actually come from the same source, and only became separated entities later in the distorted tales of Western explorers, cryptozoologists and creationists. It is also telling that, since Mackel's expeditions of the 1980s, there have been no reported sightings of the Emela Ntouka. It seems that this cryptid has taken second place to the more famous Mokele Mbembe, almost as if there was never an undiscovered horned dinosaur living in the Congo in the first place. Thank you for listening, everybody. Don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next week with another video on my speculative evolution project. Cheerio!